So I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Business Development Commission on March 9th, 2022 at 6:35. I will take the notes for me. So apologize if I'm distracted. It is 6:35. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is public comments. Seeing as that we don't have anybody from the public with us tonight, we can move on to a review of the meeting minutes from February 9th. So if you could take a couple minutes. It is included in the packet that was sent over to you. You take a minute to review them and highlight any changes, modifications that need to take place.
I wasn't present, so I can't comment.
Should actually have to vote, otherwise there's not a quorum.
I watched it online, does that count?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was not present during the last meeting, so I'll be abstaining from that vote as well.
Mr. Kelly, you can't abstain because then there's not a quorum, so you have to vote yes or no.
So let me ask you this, can we just strike that from the agenda and not take a vote on the minutes? And move it to next meeting?
If you'd like to table it, you can.
Let's
Just
do
take a
that.
motion to table it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table the approval of the minutes.
I will second it.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of moving the approval of the minutes from the February 9th meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Right, seeing as the ayes have it, so if that motion passes, we will move the approval of the minutes to next meeting, and that was proposed by Susie, right? And then I think we had a second from Aaron. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda then is kind of a big thing that we're working on right now. So the ask that came from the village, specifically the administration, was that we start to begin to develop a long-term economic development strategy. For those of you who were with us last time, Josh had given a presentation and we had begun the conversation about goals. And then I think Susie had indicated she had the opportunity to watch the video of the meeting. So hopefully we're up to speed on that. Our goal today is to sort of talk about the goals with some of the people who weren't here, i.e. Susie and Aaron, were two specific perspectives that we're looking for. Karen, you were with us last week, if I remember correctly. So we just wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to have a conversation on the goals. So from that perspective, the goals that were laid out on the sheet that we talked about, and that was from Josh, is sort of noticing that we had the goals sort of buried into our mission statement. I guess I just want to open the floor to questions, comments, thoughts on the goals as they are laid out here, and any feedback or thoughts that we might have on. And we talked about the goals are sort of the top level of the classification system, and then we go underneath that with strategies. And if you looked at Josh's document, he talks about using lenses, and then we talk about specific activity and benchmarks and things of that nature. We will get to those things later, but right now we want to just talk about the goals at the top level. So right now, what we've got listed as our goals here is the goals we have been. Here it is. Hold on, I thought I had it in front of me. Give me 2 seconds. There it is.
Were they in the?
Yeah, they were in the email chain. Here they are. Okay, so the goals that we had come up with was attracting and retaining quality businesses, diversify the local economy, enhance the community's image, and provide additional services and resources for the residents. So those are the top level 4 goals that we had come up with. And I kind of would like to open it up to the group. Obviously, Karen, if you had any thoughts between the last meeting and now, feel free to join and share them. But, curious what the group thinks about those goals.
I think they're good. I think it's wise of you that you found them right there in our mission statement. It's perfect.
Yeah, I would agree. My only question is which goal relates to growing or retaining current businesses? Because I know that was an early discussion.
So currently, we have that as a goal, which is to attract and retain businesses as a single goal. I will mention that.
Okay, so attract and retain new and existing business covered under the one. Okay, I just missed that. I apologize.
It just doesn't say new and existing, it just says quality businesses. That's what's missing.
Now, I will say, and I want to bring this up to the group for discussion, is that Dave Pizzolato had sort of sent me his document, his thoughts to share in the meeting. And he suggests that we separate, which was a question that we had last meeting, is do we separate out attracting business and retaining business as two separate goals? We see them as unique and worthy of their own goal, or do we think we should keep them together?
I think that they're really one and the same at the end of the day. Creating a sound environment and a stable, attractive environment is good for business, whether it's new or existing.
I also feel if we just separate out, then retaining businesses might be hard if we have another down economy and businesses fail. We can't be held responsible, or that should not look bad on what our process is.
Yeah, I agree with keeping it together. I think that allows for flexibility in what that defines.
Okay, yeah, I kind of thought the same thing last week, that there would be a tremendous amount of overlap if we separated them. Okay, goals. Okay, perfect. So really, from that standpoint, now, did you guys have the opportunity to read the document that Josh had put together in regards to the concept of, and Josh, did you want to whiteboard this? We had talked about doing that.
Yeah, but I don't have a marker.
Just use a permanent one.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Well, and I don't know if
I don't know how they're gonna see it,
I
but
think maybe in Teams I can actually
Can you do it
create
in
a
Teams?
whiteboard. I know in Zoom you can.
okay, well, Josh looks at that. So the next level of the classification system, if you look at Josh's document, I think down in near the end of the document, it's page 8 of your packet. We basically are during the presentation, we were sort of breaking out the mission into sort of just 3 different areas: governmental environment, physical environment, and human environment, as sort of a additional classification system. But what we want to do, and below all those, we had sort of, Josh had listed some maybe potential ideas of strategies underneath those goals. And so what we're hoping to do this evening was to take the goals, let's take attracting and retaining businesses, and then begin to list some strategies that might be underneath that. Now, part of our conversation last time, and I think we should think about this, was, I think there was, I think maybe we should talk about this a little bit before we go forward, but is, do we want to be 100% exhaustively comprehensive, or do we want to sort of pick, under each goal, a series of strategies, that we can begin to work on? Do we, did Jay give any indication as to, because we did talk about that, maybe, every 5 years, we sort of cycle back to this and sort of relook at, adding some things into it, or is the hope to try to, because if we were exhausted, it could get quite lengthy.
No, I think, different types of plans have different lifespans, right? So generally a comprehensive land use plan is 15 or 20 years, whereas a village-wide strategic plan is usually with the cycle of elected officials, so it's usually 4 years. So I think this one, given how fast economies can change and economic cycles,
Yeah.
I think 4 or 5 years would be a good horizon to look at. And yeah, I think trying to be extremely comprehensive would make this process take a very long time.
Yeah.
So I think actually maybe when you and Mr. Kelly and I first met, Mr. Kelly had talked about kind of focusing on 4 or 5 areas that everybody really cares about.
Yeah.
Which those would be quote unquote the lenses that you look through. So if for the one I was using an example because it's really easy is sustainability. If everybody really cared about sustainability at the local level, that would be a lens. And then you would say, okay, given this goal, what are some sustainable strategies to meet that, that type of thing. So obviously, you guys get to choose what you want to focus on, because it's your strategy. I'm just here to help answer questions, whatever the case may be. So don't take my sheet in there as law by any means, it's just examples. If you have other ideas, feel free.
Okay. So I think maybe what we should do, let's start with, I think, so our goal in developing the strategy, so let's come up with maybe under each goal, maybe 4 strategies, that is sort of from a priority standpoint, that we can list under there, as opposed to trying to list everything. And obviously, we want to think of the things that are the most pressing for us. And then with the realization that at some point in the future, we can grow this plan, when we maybe roll over, a 4-year period or whatever, we could sort of take a look at it. But in an effort to try to get something accomplished that is useful, I think let's limit, what does the group think? There's 4 strategies under each goal, unless something's really compelling that we feel like we need to add more is sort of a limit, 4 to 5, somewhere in there. Does that sound like it makes sense?
I wonder if that's too many for us to be able to handle.
What do you think, 400? So would that be 16 total?
Yeah, it's a lot for this committee.
Well, we don't, and that's, I think, just to clarify, we're just laying out
The
sort of
plan.
the plan, and then that really will be the administration of the village boards, I think, function to ultimately put it into place. As an advisory board, I think really our responsibility is just to sort of make a suggestion to them, and then they'll have to implement. So, but your point is still valid, though.
Well, I want to go back to Josh's very well put together thought of lenses and strategies. If we talk about our goals, the 4 goals from our mission statement, then should we not first pick the lenses that we want to look at those goals under and then move from there? I don't know.
That's what I would probably suggest, is figure out what areas of thought you all care about the most, and then you start looking at strategies related to those
After that,
things.
that's right.
So then okay. So what, Josh, why don't you just get our group started? Let's take a track and retain businesses. What is a lens so that we get an idea of, I did read the document. We have had several conversations, but why don't you go ahead and give us.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about attracting and retaining businesses. Village communication would be a lens, communicating to potential businesses, communicating to your current businesses about ongoing things in the village. That's a big thing that we're trying to do better this time with Streetscape, for example, is communicate the project better to the downtown businesses. So just communication could be a lens that you all care about. And then strategies that would lead into, or that would come from that, are marketing materials to different sectors of the economy that we want to try to attract. Ongoing communication through newsletters or whatever the case, to local businesses about current projects, upcoming projects, the budget, right? So just forms of communication would then become your strategies for how you want to maintain effective communication, because you want to retain and attract business as your goal. Does that make sense to everybody? And we have questions about that example of thought process?
Okay. No, that makes sense. So the lens then will be so village communication under attract and retain businesses. So we could sort of take that village communication lens and apply it to enhance the village's image.
Right.
Correct?
Exactly.
So the lens is, okay, so the lens is sort of I get what you're saying. It makes sense, and that's kind of, so what are some of the lenses that we think that we should be looking through, as far as, I think one of the things that Dave had mentioned was sustainability was one that was really high on his list, and I think, would that fall into the lens?
Yep.
In your perspective? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a list of 4, 8, 12, 13 lenses there that you can pull from, in front of those, or come up with your own. Just try to provide some examples.
I think we've already gotten started on beautification. I think we need to continue that one to make the downtown area looking better.
Okay, so the 4 goals are attract and retain, right? Retain businesses. Okay, so I'm building a spreadsheet here so I can.
Yeah, I'm still working on the whiteboard. It's actually a separate app for Teams. Oh,
Here we go.
maybe I got it.
There we go.
It's a blackboard, not a whiteboard. There we go.
It's trying. Work. I could use my stylist here, because that'd be cool. Let's just try this. Oh, this is not gonna go well. All right.
Well, while you're pulling that up, the one thing that and Ryan, I think you were hinting towards this, and what you said is that it may not be a one-to-one mapping of a goal to a lens. A lens may apply across multiple of those goals. So like village communication could apply to 2 of the 4 or 5 goals, right? Or have an effect on it, not just on the retained business, but potentially on some of the other areas. So just something to consider when we're thinking about this is would that lens apply horizontally across multiple goals? And if so, how does that change, I guess, Josh, how does that change how we would approach that lens?
I think you're thinking exactly right, and my whiteboard was working on my computer, but it wasn't sharing. But I would almost graphically, you can have your goals across the top, right? And then you would have your 3, 4, 5 lenses that you really care about across the side, and then those would matrix into strategies. If that makes sense. So, for example, attract and retain business, village communication, market materials, newsletter every month to businesses. You know, so every goal might and every lens might not intersect. A lens might intersect 3 out of the 4 goals. The lenses, I'm not trying to make it more complicated, but a lenses are just a way to focus this huge thought area down to a more manageable thing to digest.
Should we decide on our lenses first? For what isn't that what's most important to us and what direction we want to move?
That's what I would suggest. You know, that would be a way to do it. You've got your goals. Now you want to think about what areas do you care about, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, specifically if it's going to be a spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
You got rows and columns. So if one of them, to your point, Susie, is that if one, you know, the rows are goals, then the lenses would be the columns. And so again, I think that should then be the next thing from a perspective that we should sort of look at. So,
I agree with Dave on sustainability. I think that's important. I think beautification is important. I think communication is a lens.
So I think I can make this spreadsheet and share it. Maybe that'll work.
I'm sorry, I just got a little bit lost. Are we on attracting and retaining businesses?
we're kind of looking at the strategy right now, the way that we're going to approach it in communicating this. So basically, what we're trying to do is, in order to get to strategies, we want to take goals on one side and maybe lenses across the top of a spreadsheet. And then where those two intersect, say, for instance, the first lens might be sustainability. If we look at sustainability and attract and retain businesses, the facade program theoretically could be part of, what might be a strategy that we would come out with, which is sort of the intersection of a lens and a goal. So I think what we're trying to do now is using Josh's document to look at those potential lenses as well as any that you might think of. These were just things that were suggested, is to kind of determine which lenses we want to sort of establish for the group. And I think the first one that was suggested by Dave was sustainability. Is sustainability something we as a group think is very core to what one of the first lenses that we should consider?
What's the definition of sustainability in this context?
So the way that I had it in there was related to environmental sustainability in particular. So it would be things like, some of the strategies that are exemplified, put in as examples would be, one could be requiring developers to use some portion of permeable pavement, so that, they have.
Make sure that
rain gardens, what are those called? LEED buildings, right? LEED certified buildings, energy efficiency, things like that would be related to sustainability.
Sustainability. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
What are the other goals?
So do we think that sustainability should be in the first group of lenses that we consider?
Well, I'm for it. Dave's for it.
No. Aaron, you on board?
Sorry, I was looking for my mute button because when the Excel got shared, I thought I lost it. No, I agree with that. And, you know, Karen, to your question, I think we could expand sustainability also for things like, does the village consider tax credits for renewable energy usage, or for, you know, does a business get special exemptions if they're utilizing wind or solar power, things like that, right?
Or putting in electric power charging stations. I've been researching.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Enhance the community's.
Diversify the local economy, enhance the image, and provide additional services and resources.
So those are the three lenses that have been discussed.
Are there any other lenses you guys are interested in? I would think infrastructure is not necessarily a lens. I would think that would be a strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hard and fast rules for this stuff. I mean, you know, I think infrastructure is a pretty broad term, and then you start talking about things like capacity of water, capacity of sewer treatment,
Got it,
flood mitigation.
got it.
I would think workforce development or entrepreneur programs. I mean, either of those. And I guess then, Ryan, this would be a question to you and Karen based on the discussion from the last meeting. Do we see that as a function of this committee? Is it a function of this committee partnering with the chamber? Is it just the chamber that would have something like that? Like, where would you see that type of role lying?
Karen, I mean, I can answer that from my perspective. Did you want to share anything first?
I sometimes think of priorities in terms of like ABC priority, and I wouldn't put it as a priority for this committee, because Aaron, to your point, like this could really go in so many different directions. And I'm not sure that I personally feel that it's something that we should focus on first. Because I do think that it does cross over to a lot of different areas, like the chamber or partnering with, you know, schools or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, and I would tend to, you know, I think if, you know, when I think about where we're at in our development, I think about the fact that we've got some pretty rapid growth that's coming over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that workforce development and entrepreneur programs are going to be very important sort of in maybe down the road. And I do agree that, and I think we had talked about with this economic, you know, we're all kind of learning this EDS concept, right, as we go along. But that we're going to need multiple stakeholders involved in, you know, sort of coordinating things of that nature. And I think the function of this board is really just to give guidance and direction, but fundamentally the implementation will be at the administration level as well as the chamber. But I think really one of the things that we really need to be thinking about is land use as a really important lens that we need to think about. And I think, but I do agree, Aaron, that workforce development and entrepreneurial programs are going to be key to finishing this strategy well. I just don't know if we're quite there just yet.
Yeah, understood. And I agree, Karen, with your purview too, right? It's important, but is it a tier 1 or a top priority? Probably not at this time. It's something we can partner with other organizations on.
I also did. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I just like to throw in there too, just from a nuts and bolts, not really, you know, exciting, but necessary areas, village approval and code.
Yeah,
I just think that's, you know, pivotal for people who are coming in or trying to expand, you know, the navigating those waters.
That almost kind of make those the same lens when you think as, or do you see them, do we see those as two different lenses?
When I put them down, I was thinking of village approvals as the processes that we have.
Mhm.
So a process to get a special use, a process to get a variance, process to get a building permit, a process to annex. And then the village code itself would be the actual regulations that you follow once you're in the village. So business license requirements, local taxes, building codes for, you know, for example, a strategy could be have, building regulations updated within the last 8 years, which we currently don't have.
Right.
I don't know how important that really is, because we seem to be doing fine under the 06, although we are talking about moving to a newer code. But that's just an example of what I thought of as a code. By all means, if you want to think about it as the same, feel free to do so. I did just want to echo land use though. That's one of the big ones I know that Jay and I are looking for guidance on is what types of businesses and where in the village do you all think they should try to locate? And that would fall under land use.
Yeah, I mean, to Karen's point, I think the village approvals is, I mean, Karen, help me, you've done, you know, I think you've been more involved than probably most of us in developing projects. Is it the approval process or is it the code itself that's more sort of primary in your view?
I appreciate the clarification, Josh, because I understand that better now. So they're both important, but I think the approval process that's what I was really sort of thinking about. I mean, that's what people's initial experiences are with the village, you know, going, and again, it's whether you're coming in new or, you know, potentially expanding or it can be, I think the code itself might be like as Aaron said, like a tier 2. But I think if we're looking to attract businesses, making that process something that we focus on, look through that lens would be important.
Okay, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, I think long-term, this sort of experience within the approval process could drive the changing of code so that, because one of the things I remember being on the board, and probably Aaron can attest to by still doing it, is there's so much of our code is so much of the stuff we do is almost like governed by exception. You know, a lot of times we've got variances, people come in and ask for changes and things of that nature. But as long as that process is the approval process, allowing people to do that within reason, I mean, that's maybe more important than actually the code itself. So how many of these lenses do you guys think we should put down? I mean, this is just more asking about what is this end document? Because we see ourselves, there's going to be multiple strategies in each one of those cells. We think that Excel spreadsheet.
I would think personally, after we just had a discussion, that we can take workforce development and entrepreneurial programs out of there for now.
Yep.
Which then leaves us with what, 1, 2, 3,
Six.
4, 5, 6.
Yes, the other thing
Maybe
you
code can go out too.
The other thing you could start to consider as you kind of figure out which things you care about is when they go across, are they gonna apply to a lot of these? I mean, it's okay if they only apply to one each, like that's totally up to you. But you know, for example, does the village code apply to enhancing the community's image? I mean, it could, kind of tangentially in my mind, but it's just however you think you can then start to build these strategies. You know, if you're only wanting to focus on 4 lenses, you might want to pick 4 lenses that apply to multiple goals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, up to you.
Can you combine approvals and codes?
Sure.
I mean, just to make it so we have.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Okay. Yeah, and I was just kind of thinking for my target number, I think we should still keep throwing them out. I mean, because Dave also throws out land use. He had entrepreneur programs in there, but I think we've already talked about that. But village budgeting was one that he had listed as a lens.
Here's my opinion on village budgeting. First of all, they have expenses that are non-negotiable.
Hmm.
There's nothing we can do about it. But if we have some kind of a overarching plan that takes in sustainability, beautification, then their budget, I would think, would want to align to the goals that we've set, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's really big picture. That's one of the purposes of a strategic plan and strategic management is to then spend based on the goals and the
Right.
strategies that you've identified and make sure those are linked year after year. So it could be that village budgeting is inherent in even doing this whole project, is that you do this project, therefore village budgeting will be,
Correct.
I don't want to just say better, but more precise to what we care about.
More focused.
Okay, are there any other lenses then that people
The only
want?
thing, I have
put
a
up there?
problem with the word beautification.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think I wrote that because it's the downtown beautification subcommittee. That's
Exactly,
whatever.
exactly. I just, that just strikes me as an old fashioned word.
what are some alternatives do you think that
I
would
don't know, let
better
me look at my
capture?
thesaurus.
With thesaurus.
What about adding in infrastructure? I know that's something that we've talked about in the past, that certain types of businesses require certain types of infrastructure. I think Ryan, like transportation and logistics off of 20 will require changes to roadways, power systems, the water connection, things like that, right?
I think 100% infrastructure should be, specifically given where we're at in our history, right? We've got a lot more development coming. And so infrastructure is, I think it's going to be a pretty radical piece of that economic development strategy. So I agree.
But is that something, and I'm going to defer to you, Aaron and Ryan, with your trustee experience. Is that something that's really more handled? Is that something we handle, or is that handled more on like a board level?
So I think it's something that we as a committee can make recommendations to the board about. So, I would say it actually correlates with some of the others, such as sustainability, land use, potentially village approvals codes. But I think the recommendation comes like, let's say we're creating a master plan or a comprehensive plan, and we're saying this segment of land should be utilized for retail commercial space. In order to have that happen, an infrastructure needs to be built out or available to that area of X, Y, and Z, which would require a budgetary and capital project commitment from the village. This would be our recommendation to the board.
Okay, I see. And thank you, Josh, for putting that back, like road and bridge improvements and.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about that one, as just to give an example, is that we had a real estate broker call us about some property about 30 acres west on 72. It's actually not contiguous with the village, so I had to send them to the county, but they were interested in putting commercial along 72 and then potentially like logistics, industrial in the back. And the first thing that kind of came to Jay's mind was, where are the trucks gonna go? How are they gonna go from north to south? If there's no, because there's no thoroughfare north-south over there, they would have to drive all the way through town over to Briar Hill Road or Highway 20. They'd have to drive way west. So, an example would be, we need the French Harmony connection to happen, and that requires a new road, pretty big road, and a bridge to go over the railroad tracks. That's a big road and bridge project that would be under infrastructure for the purpose of basically opening up the west side of town for industrial development, if that's an area that you thought that would be suited for.
Gotcha. All right, thank you for that. Yeah, that's definitely very important.
And I think this tool is, and I just want to kind of reiterate this, what we're developing, the EDS strategy, isn't really a tool for BDC. It's a tool that we're trying to help for the village to use as a guiding light for their activities specifically. So even things that, we won't be getting involved with, like infrastructure, I think generally would be something we won't get all that involved with. However, I think it is something that we as a business development commission can say, we think part of economic development, you should really be thinking about infrastructure. And these are the specific things that you should be thinking
down the road.
I'm just gonna butt in here. I looked up beautification and of course there's no synonyms because it's an entire project, urban beautification. I mean, it is so, pardon me for not liking that word. But the first thing that pops up is beautification / infrastructure. So it all goes hand in hand.
Sure.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was just gonna add to your last comments there, Chairman Krajewski, is that some of these things, if the BDC had hands-on things that you wanted to get involved with, such as a monthly newsletter to all the local businesses, maybe, you could share that with the chamber. You could send it each month to the PR committee for them to review and put out. If you guys actually want to be creating content or doing something like that, you kind of what I'm trying to say is you don't just have to be a recommendation body or advisory board, right? I mean, obviously you don't have a dedicated budget or anything like that. But if there's things like that you want to get involved in, you could certainly look to do that.
Yeah.
And that would be a strategy.
No, exactly. And that's exactly good. Okay, what do we think about this? I like this group of lenses, I think, right now. I mean, let's go back to that real quick.
Can't really see that, it's kind of small.
What am I missing?
Beautification.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 6?
3, 4, 6.
Okay.
I like
And
it.
that might be good. I mean,
I think that's good.
Feels good to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Okay. So, trying to learn this process here. So now what we think then is with these lenses, which I think are good, we'll look at the goals and we'll see, do we then think of strategies that would fit underneath that, into that cell, like say for the first one is beautification, attract and retain businesses. So strategy could be facade program, perhaps.
right.
Right,
But that might be the first one.
right.
And that's what we want to sort of start to populate this
Like
thing
facade.
out. Yeah, I think so.
Just put facade program. I know what you mean.
And what I did with mine, Josh, on my spreadsheet, I created a little multiples,
Yeah.
between beautification and sustainability, I made 3 rows.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
And then I'm just gonna box them in with my fancy box tool. So, but, okay, and I'm gonna actually wanna mirror yours now. Cause I've got mine in different order. Okay. All right, so guys, as we look across our bingo card of economic development strategy,
Well, that's.
what do you think?
Enhance an image. That's our third column over.
Do you wanna, okay, so you wanna go down to that one?
No, beautification is gonna carry over to that same.
Yes.
I'm going across.
Oh, okay, I got what you're saying. Yeah, so you want to start filling in. Okay, so what other things, right, what other things is the lens of beautification going to affect in consumer goals? Yes, I agree.
I mean, another quick example would be a streetscape project.
Right.
That would be enhanced our image, correct?
This will come later, but as trustee Kelly knows, the catenary light system, as we were talking before, did not make it into the budget for this project. So that might be another, that's a little more than a strategy, to be honest. It's a little more specific than a strategy, but, you could say something along the lines of continue to add to the downtown streetscape
Right.
after the project is complete. That would be a
That would be
strategy.
good.
Yeah, so now it's just, how long do you want to spend each meeting doing this?
I mean, yeah, like I said, I think it could, so then the question is so this kind of gets to where we were talking before, Susie, is when you start to sort of blow this up. Because underneath all the strategies, at some point, we're gonna want to add. What was the thing, next thing is objectives, isn't it? There's the next thing. Theoretically, what comes after that?
Just that you just narrow it
Yeah,
down to more
objectives.
specific
And then, yeah, so
tasks.
like a classification system. So how many of these, okay, so does beautification apply to providing additional services or resources to the residents?
It could apply to resources to the residents because it would provide a place for them You know, if it's a nice park or grassy area or a dog walk or a charging station, all of those things that are going to increase the resources to the community. I don't know.
And one thing that just stuck out there to me, for example, could be focus on, I don't know if you want to say requiring or adding, focus on green space in some way. That's makes the community beautiful and
Right.
Provide
provides,
It's a
parks, for
service,
example.
yeah, resources, right, exactly.
So a strategy then
Will
to
be like
take
a green
beautification down to providing, so is maybe we could say,
Right,
we could
Parks
say
and green
just green
space.
space, right? Focus on parks and green space.
sustainability. Well, I personally feel with the price of gas going up, that everything's gonna go greener. So people are gonna be moving away from fossil fuels. So if we can be on the cutting edge of that and providing that or encouraging that in the buildings, in the community, it would be to our benefit.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
I think under attract and retain business for sustainability, I would recommend putting something like incentivize businesses for sustainable practices.
Very good. Excellent.
I'm starting to get out of screen here.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to, that's what I'm messing with now. What about, just stick with beautification, do you think anything, are there any strategies that the lens of beautification that we should think about from diversifying the local economy? And again, we don't have to put anything in there. I think Josh had mentioned that earlier. So if the answer is no, we don't need to force square pegs in round holes. But again, just trying to, the lenses, I think, as I wrote in the email, is to just make sure we're not missing anything. Right? It allows us to think of different strategies. Does anyone think of anything for diversify the local economy?
Not at this time.
Let me know. All right, it's good. Okay, and then Aaron jumped in with sustainability in incentivized businesses for sustainable building practices. 100%. Diversify the local economy. Or
I think that's attract new green businesses or eco-focused business. I don't know the right term for it, but something around attracting businesses focused on that market or industry or segment.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too, the companies that do installations, or, specialize in that area, or do we think that? I don't know.
Solar panel,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff.
I was thinking, a great business would be installing, like coming out of it, coming out with really quick and easy way to install, charging ports in garages.
Yeah.
For people who get electric cars.
Yeah.
That is gonna be a booming business, I think, over the next 20 years. Okay. What else? I mean, Josh, are we kind of doing what you're thinking? Is this kind of what you had in mind?
Yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's more fun when everybody's in a room and there's a big whiteboard and people
Yeah,
are writing, like,
ideas.
it's a little different. I've never done it with people via Teams or Zoom before, but yeah, this is the process.
Well, I think maybe even tonight, given that we don't have everybody, we're 15 minutes into the meeting, we got some other things that we need to do. I think we're kind of getting the sense of how we're gonna do this. I mean, it might even make sense for us to, I'm not saying table it, but I'm just saying is, let's start to list a few more of these things, but let's leave a little bit for next meeting. To see if we can get some more collaborative ideas, almost the same way that we did last time.
Well, and I don't want to put homework on
What-
yours, but you could always just come up with things between meetings and then discuss them.
Right.
When other
I was just gonna say that too, Josh, is it may be good because there are members missing or that weren't able to attend, emailing your spreadsheet out to everyone to say, hey, go through yourself and fill in what you think would be areas, and then we all come back and share what each of us filled and just come to a consensus on different areas.
I like that.
Yeah, now that we've got it narrowed down, it'll be easier to do.
So maybe, okay, I like that idea, actually. So maybe Josh, send me this, we'll clean it up, make it easy to populate or whatever. And then what we'll do is then, we'll send it out to everybody. And then say, hey, before next meeting, let's maybe a week before, maybe by that Friday before the next meeting, everyone kind of sends it in, and then I can then distribute that out to everybody. And then we come together, we can kind of vote on, on the strategies of what we think. What do you think about that, Karen?
Oh, sorry, I'm hitting all the wrong buttons. Yes, I think that sounds great.
I think that's good, because then it gives us time to think, right? We can look over things. We just need to, commit ourselves to following through on that. And I think if we do, then everybody sends their in, then we can sort of look it over, and then we can come together and just really narrow this down. And then, yeah, so let's do that. That sound good? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so baby stepping our way through this, I think. But honestly, once we get the we got lenses down, we started putting strategies down, the goals are done. We're actually making a little bit more progress on than I expected. So, okay, so I will work with Josh. We'll get that sent out to the group. I'll send it to the whole crew, and then before next meeting, I said target, if we can't target that Friday before the next meeting. What day is it?
Next meeting is the 13th.
Oh,
April,
almost tax day. So here it is, the April 9th. So let's try, if we can, or 8th, if we can try to get it in by the 8th of April. I will put that in my email that I sent out to the team. So, but if we can, I think that'd be really good. We can go about it that way. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just take a couple notes so that we have this here. And then the next thing up, Josh, why don't you go ahead? I think the next thing is, and brace yourselves. Update on Streetscape. So,
Sure.
let's go ahead and share that.
So at the last village board meeting, the board approved to award the project to the lowest bidder. I think it was Alliance Construction, or yeah, I think that's right. So the project itself came in over budget again. And this time, if you'll remember, what we did is we had the kind of the core project, and then we had 4 alternates. So an alternate would there add or replace something in favor of something better. For example, one of the alternates, the one that was included was the assembly of the village clock and, wiring it up and making it active downtown here. So the village clock is in. An alternate that was not included is the catenary light system, which is the cross lights across the festival block. That came in about $100,000 over budget. What's the other one? Oh, instead of actual pavers in the intersection, it's gonna be colored concrete, which honestly staff is happy about anyway, because we were concerned about plowing over the pavers because we don't have rubber blades. One of the other alternates was, I think, instead of pavers in the bulb outs and in the sidewalk space, that's also gonna be a colored concrete. And then there was one other, that was all 4 of them. So all the infrastructure is still in, the landscaping is still in, new sidewalk, concrete festival block, so they'll reconstruct the road in the festival block and make that concrete. The bulb outs are all still present. There's going to be crosswalks. They're going to be it's not colored concrete. It's a type of, there's a chemical name for it, but it's similar to a paint, but it's not, it doesn't get painted on. It gets adhered into the concrete when the concrete's still wet. And there's all kinds of colors that can be chosen, whatever. So that's the gist of the project. Are there any specific questions that I might be able to answer? Basically, it's going to move forward now that the project's been awarded. There'll be a meeting with the contractor to establish a construction schedule and to talk about the alternates a little more. There's a 16-week window for them to complete the project once they've started it. They could start as early as maybe April 15th, I would say. They have to finish, I think it's October 20, it's like the last week in October is when they have to finish it. We don't we don't think it'll take them all 16 weeks, but, you know, EEI advised us to give them a nice long window in order to make sure we stay competitive as competitive as we can on pricing, given the issues people are having with supply chain and getting materials. So we think it'll probably take more like 10 to 12 weeks, but just, you don't know these days.
So go over again what is being included again, just so I can get my notes. right.
Okay, so all of the infrastructure. So the underground infrastructure is still in. Reconstructing State Street between Jefferson and Washington, and that will now be a concrete road. Adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those bulb outs at the intersections of Jefferson State and Washington State to calm traffic and allow for a little more landscaping, because there'll be landscaping in those bulb outs. Colored concrete bulb outs, colored concrete intersections in lieu of pavers.
Okay.
And the village clock.
And we are putting in new streetlights, correct?
Yes, yeah, I forgot that too. Yeah, replacing the streetlights with a more ornamental streetlight.
So in the process of redoing the festival lot of State Street, we're gonna redo the parking as well, according to the plan.
That's also
we have
true.
back then.
That's also true. So I believe it's the north side of State Street will be parallel parking.
East.
Sorry, yeah, I'm used to looking at the picture where
Yeah.
west and east are up and down. So no, it's the west side.
West
I believe.
side is
Yeah,
parallel.
the west side will
Side
be
is
parallel.
diagonal, right.
The north side of State Street. Right along the tracks.
Okay. And then, and the shrubberies are still in.
Yep, the landscaping is still there. Street lights. Basically, the front, what did they say, 4 feet, I think, from either 4 or 5 feet of all the sidewalk between Jefferson and Washington will all be replaced. That may end up as colored concrete or just regular concrete. But they're gonna put new curb and gutter in too, is why they're gonna replace that whole section on both sides.
Okay, so it's really just the lighting, the override, so that $250,000 to put that up.
Materials and installation labor. We're looking, staff is still looking at a potential way to get that funded separate from the grant funds. But that'll, the budget right now is already, there's either going to need to be cuts or some kind of revenue transfers at this point. So I don't know if that'll end up in the budget or not. It'll be up to the village board whether they want to include something like that. I will also add, geographically related to Streetscape, but not part of the Streetscape project, is that the railroad merger that you might have heard of,
Yes.
that staff is still in talks with what we're gonna do at the railroad crossing. And we might potentially be doing a little work there to make that a safer crossing, in favor of having a quiet zone. So that the horns don't go off with all the new added rail traffic.
Okay. I'm actually just pulling up the original Streetscape budget, because I just want to see what else was originally.
Is that merger happened? Is it done too?
I don't know if it's like legally merged yet,
But it is.
but it's moving forward as far as I know. There are starting to be more communities that are vocalizing opposition to it, east of here. But my personal opinion is I don't think that that's going to stop it, but I think it could happen.
So are we doing any trees? Yeah, okay, so guys, just kind of giving us a bit. It doesn't look like too much got cut out.
Yeah, really, if you look at the concept plans from way back when they first were drafted, not much looks different except for the catenary light system won't be there. And instead of pavers, it'll be solid color concrete.
Right.
That's kind of the differences, I would
Which you
say.
kind of think is a bit of a win. Now, I did notice in the village meeting that you guys discussed that sometimes that concrete coloring doesn't last. how, and the only reason that I heard was brought up was there is a crosswalk in front of,
First American,
Yeah,
I think, and so is this stuff we expect to?
yeah, this is, when I say colored concrete, this is not painted. This is like a dye in the concrete mixture. So, you know, it'd be like having a blender and putting a food dye in it. So the concrete itself will be colored all the way through the slab of concrete. It's not a paint on top like the crosswalks here were.
Okay,
So those should, I mean, they'll get dusty and traffic will go over them, but they should remain that same color as long as they're there.
okay. Well, that's not as bad as I
No.
thought. I mean, I'm
That's
really
a good
bummed about the
workaround.
lighting, but yeah. And if you can include it, I think all of us on the board think that that's one of the most important sort of aspects to the sparkle, as you called it earlier. So if you can find a way, we'd love for you to find a way, but you know, I think that it does include, we had $90,000 in the number for that originally. Back, what, a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
18 months ago?
Everything's going up.
No, I
Yeah,
just,
a little bit.
250 grand, what kind of, and this, now is like, it's,
I think it's just because it's specialized electrical work. You know, I don't know how much of that is materials versus installation labor, but that's.
I work in factories, that stuff's expensive. We could do a lot for $250,000. Then run, that's crazy to me. That's crazy. Okay,
Look at the price of cars.
no,
Even
I
used
mean, we're
cars.
talking lights though, right? I mean, like I was just in Tampa that last week and they're just lights on a string. I mean, it's not that, I find it hard to like I mean, do they have to take out any concrete? Do they have to? I mean, $250,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it's a small thing, but don't forget there was also going to be like, how many? 10 or 12 new physical poles.
Right.
right.
Which are all
Right,
steel.
decorative
I mean, those aren't cheap.
Well,
Yeah, so we're looking at options, you know, whether it's this exact system or a similar catenary system that's cheaper, you know, we're trying.
okay, no, and I know you are, so we appreciate it. It's just stunning to me. So, okay, all right, so thank you for that, Josh. We appreciate it. The next thing up on the budget is the beautification committee report, which Bill is not here to give. However, Bill, as usual, continues to work fervently in between meetings. And we did receive, and I'll just share with you, they've got a meeting coming up. No, they do not have a meeting coming up, but we did get he has reached out to all of the people on the beautification committee because we got a new facade application for 124 South State Street, which is the former office of the lawyer Raymond Witoski.
Oh.
That building has been purchased and closed, from what I understand,
Yes.
middle of last month. And I had a meeting with this gentleman who is very excited, and we are very excited that he's excited. And he's got some really great plans for what he is going to be.
Is it a business?
It is a business. It has been described for me as a coffee shop by day
Oh,
and a wine shop charcuterie.
so that's more of a dining entertainment thing that we were going for.
Yes. So when he started explaining to me, I'm like, wow, it's so much like you've been eavesdropping on our meetings. I think it's exactly what we were looking for in the downtown space. And
Is he aware of the Streetscape project? It's going to.
He is aware, he actually, when I met with him, he said that he also really hoped that we could get the catenary light system in. Yes, he's aware of it, and he actually asked me, once we have a schedule, if I could let him know, because he kind of wants to coordinate his construction with the streetscape project so that, yeah, it doesn't have a grand opening and then we tear up the street.
Good idea.
and he's delivered a 45-page
Oh, yeah.
application. So
It's very comprehensive and it's put together very nicely.
Good.
very legit. So we're not gonna see this until it gets through beautification. But needless to say, it is very promising. And I think it will, has the potential to add another feather in our cap as far as the downtown goes. Right in lockstep with what we're trying to do. So that's very exciting. And Bill has already met with the gentleman, I think, a couple occasions. And then, so I think she's gotta get through beautification, then we'll see it, and then we'll get it to the village board, and then we'll get to it.
So I would imagine at our next meeting, we will have, this application in front of us. Yes.
Yeah, the only caveat, of course, is that the village board can't approve to spend the money until after the new budget cycle.
Sure.
Because the budget has to be passed with the level of funding for the facade program for the next fiscal year.
Correct.
At the budget committee meeting, the budget showed $100,000 for the facade program, which is what it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then went down to 75 the last couple of years, but it's back up to 100 as of now. This project alone is a $74,000 project. So if that was funded, you know, at 50 or 75%, that would be a great portion of the funding for next year, but it's also a great project. So
Yeah.
it'll be up to all of you in the village board.
So that's exciting. So our work continues. Okay, so from a beautification standpoint, he didn't really share anything else with me. I just know that he's planning on having a meeting with beautification, and then we'll have a look see. But as Josh had mentioned, as the new budget year is rolling around, when we should expect to have a little bit more work with whatever monies are left available. So you said it's still at 100,000?
It's at 100 last time, yeah.
Okay. But it's thrown out there, if we need someone, 25 of that to get the lights. From 1 year, I might sort of say
Maybe
that.
we could try donors, try a GoFundMe page.
Actually, the guy opening this place, which is, he told me it's gonna be called Hampshire Social, by the way. He actually suggested the same thing as, get local businesses together.
Right.
See if they were be willing to donate for that extra sparkle.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that's beautification. So let me get back to the packet. Okay, the next thing is Hampshire's very own. I don't know if you guys were able to see, but we did send.
We did skip over Main Street,
Where is it?
number 6.
Oh, thanks. Okay, my apologies.
Oh, that's all right.
Susie, do you have anything to share?
Did we renew? We did? Okay.
We did.
No, I have nothing to share.
Okay, that will be going forward, one of the things we want to focus on here in the next few months. So I think now that, let's maybe between this meeting and next meeting.
I think once we get our goals and get our strategies, then we can combine it with Main Street.
I was just gonna say, maybe that's one of the strategies or objectives.
You're right.
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
point, Josh.
Okay. So then we just did send out a Hampshire's very own, last time, but, what did just go out? Jeannie.
Christine Michelle's.
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah.
the last one.
Yes, Christina Michelle, who is now, as you guys know, has joined the beautification committee, and she is, I had a chance to talk to her at the chamber breakfast, and she wanted to extend her appreciation to our board for the work that was done at her facility. She is booked, she's got no openings, so her business is booming, which is exactly what we want to hear from a new business that's moved into downtown. But up next will be O'Reilly Family Dental. I've spoken to Jeannie, and I believe she'll be reaching out to them this month, and then we'll just continue moving there. And then Josh, you created this budget, thank you, or this agenda, and you listed under 9 Vista Trans Hampshire Logistics Park. I saw that in the meeting that I watched on the 3rd. You guys had talked about that, but you want to give us a little more detail?
Yep. Yeah, I just included in the packet their presentation that they presented at the last village board meeting. It's public, it's out there, so figured no harm. So they are kind of the latest big project that seems to be on the horizon. They are proposing to build, well, first of all, they're gonna be located in the Hampshire 90 Logistics Park. That's what they're looking at purchasing, which is the park, let's see, how do I like to say this? On the northeast side of 20, but south of 90, kind of that corner right there where 20 and 90 come together. And that's the part that Mike Gazzola had gotten all annexed and zoned and everything. So they're looking.
That's not gonna be the biofuel thing?
Not right there. It's gonna be just north of them, but still south of 90.
Okay, but the biofuel thing is still going in.
It's there. I'll talk about that one too.
Okay.
So they're looking at buying this whole 90 acres. And Vista is proposing to build a corporate headquarters for their logistics company. Their logistics company is similar to BEK, which is just across the highway in that other park. They will have a proposed 45,000 square foot facility. I think they said 10 to 12 of that would be for, oh man, I lost the presentation here. 10 to 12 of it would be for. My PDF could keep up with me.
Yeah, that's what mine is.
And there's images in the packet too. I just don't wanna share my screen in case somebody wants to talk.
Warehouse, truck and trailer repair,
Yeah,
on-site.
okay, here it is, yeah, so 10 to 20,000 square feet would be for cross-dock warehouse and distribution space. They will have on-site truck and trailer repair. They will have parking for up to 257 trucks. They do not expect a lot of in and out truck traffic though. Again, they're not a Amazon distribution center, right? This is a corporate headquarters and service station mostly, so it's just a place for trucks to come, maybe once a quarter. And have their, truck looked at and have the driver stay overnight while that's happening. What else about them? They're also proposing some dormitories for their drivers to stay overnight, so that would be an interesting accessory use, but welcome. And that's pretty much it. I mean, they see great demand in this area for logistics and trucking, just like we've been talking about for the last 1.5 to 2 years, so they are going to take basically one of those lots that they've proposed, you can see in the packet, and then they would, it's not Vista that's buying the whole property, there's a real estate company that would be then subdividing that area and having other tenants that come in and fill the rest of those lots, probably related, industrial logistics type, operations. Any questions about Vista?
Yeah, on one of your slides, you've got Marketplace Trans Gold Coast Logistics, Elgin, Illinois, under construction. Is that what's planned here, or is that additional part of that business elsewhere?
So the one in Elgin exists.
It does.
Or it's under construction, right? And that, they put that in there because that is a very similar style building they would plan to build for Vista.
Okay. Because the diagrams then on the other slide, I guess one of the buildings could be that one, the upper right-hand corner. It's, the doors, the truck semis is what I'm looking at. So I didn't see that particular picture. Didn't look like it was part of the plans on this page. And I asked because I live a quarter mile away.
Okay. So maybe that's not a similar build, yeah, okay, so I see. So that's not a similar building, right? The similar building that they plan to show is the one that they provided concepts for. That is just another one of their projects that they have built to show us that they build nice buildings.
Okay.
And they landscape it and everything.
Got it.
Okay, that's cool. That seems like that logistic thing continues to grow a lot there.
Any other questions about Vista?
No.
All right. So then I just listed others, kind of give you some updates. So Fulcrum Bioenergy, we've talked about before, still in the process of going to that site owned by Dave Ziegler on Highway 20. It's actually right in the corner of 20 and 90, on the northeast side of 20. They have
Northeast side of 20, but south of 90.
right.
So it's real close to where this is.
Yeah, it borders it actually.
Got it.
Yeah, just north of it. It's northern border. So different development project, different owner, different developer, but right there. So they're still planning. They just have a whole other type of process that they have to do for their type of facility, which is not a village process, and they're going through that now. But I did talk to, I think, their engineer this morning, and he's preparing some of the annexation and zoning documents for the village. So that should be forthcoming. That's about all I have on that. Other projects.
What is that project being built? They're starting to grade the earth northwest of Millerack or whatever that company is.
Mineralac?
Yeah,
Northwest of Mineralac.
right on the corner. Well, it's on south of 20, south of Higgins, but east of Pet Ag.
Okay. I think you
Oh, is
might,
that the Montemouth?
yeah, I think you might be referring to the oh man, which one is that? Freight Union project. So that one didn't require any annexation or zoning. It was all good to go. So they're just building, and that's another logistics company,
Okay,
smaller than Vista, but yeah.
so their egress to 20 will be south behind Millerack, or is it going to come on?
Well, they're actually on the farthest south part of that whole logistics park that actually be south of Mineral Lake.
Well, what are they building? The one I'm talking about, their grading equipment is there, and they've got the black, stuff around the field. So they are starting to build.
I don't know of anything north of Mineral Lake. I know BEK was putting up an addition, I think, but it's just attached to their current facility.
All right, let me pull it up here on a map. You can see what I'm talking about here.
I don't think there's anything that I know of. I know there was a vacant parcel up there that they were still marketing. I don't
No,
think they've got a buyer.
It's getting construction.
Okay.
They're building on it. So let me show you where it is. This area right here.
Yeah, so that's the vacant parcel. I don't think they have an actual tenant going in there yet, but they might be grading it in preparation for one.
Got it. Okay.
At least I don't know of any tenant that's, bought that or is looking at that.
Yeah, there's no signs up, but the grading equipment is there.
Okay. What else was I gonna mention? Talked about Fulcrum, Project Yukon, the big, 1.5 million square foot project. We're still one of the 2 finalists, between us and Belvedere. They did sign an access agreement with, the owner of that property to do things, to that property. There's a, what do you call it, non-disclosure agreement, so we don't have all the details, but they're, potentially doing soil borings or surveying. We're not really sure, but
Is that the Shireland property?
yes.
Yeah, you can
Yes.
see them out there working all the time.
Yep.
All right.
So we're still in the running there, and we think, we're very hopeful because we think that if site work is happening, then that means we're probably the first candidate. Because our theory is that you don't do site work on both sites, you pick your favorite one and do the site work and make sure it works. So we're hopeful that could drop any day. Okay, and that's 1.5 million square feet, 3,000 jobs. Still don't know who it is exactly. We've heard that it could be. We've heard Amazon, we've heard Walmart, and we've heard, I think, Cisco. So.
What, or has it been sold, or is it going to be developed, the property that is east of Wendy's? Used to be a gas station and torn down.
East of Wendy's.
That's that new Thornton's.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
taking them so long?
Oh, yeah, there's a good update. I'm glad you brought that up. So Thornton's actually sold that property. They sold it to a big, nationwide development company that buys land and develops it and puts in tenants, everything from a Cracker Barrel to a hotel to, we have no idea what they're gonna do because they do a lot of stuff. But Thornton sold that property for, I think I'm gonna get it wrong, but $4 million, 7 acres.
Wow.
Definitely multi-millions. I think it was maybe almost 4 million, or maybe almost 5 million.
Another question on Big Timber and 20. That property on the southeast corner sold. Is that developer still?
We did find out who bought that. It's not a big developer or anything. They own a company in South Elgin. They actually own a construction company, and they just bought the land thinking they might put something there for their property. But I know Jay talked to them, and he kind of asked them about, maybe put some commercial in, and they seemed very open to talking with the village about what the village might want. So they didn't seem like they were trying to hide or force whatever they want in there.
And
So
is the village involved in the whole brouhaha about the kids walking from Lakewood subdivision across Big Timber to the new school?
yes, the village is involved in that. The village has been trying with Crown and with the school district to get more safety measures there. Jay noted at the last village board meeting that we went from basically no safety measures and just a crosswalk to the village and Crown and school district all got together and finally got KDOT to agree to these 4 flashers. The village is planning on having a crossing guard there during the beginning and ending of school. So it's improved based on what it was, but basically there's not enough traffic count to justify a stoplight or anything right there. Oh, and we also got a speed zone agreed to by KDOT to go from 50 to, I think, 45 to 20.
Have they ever thought of asking the Crown, the developer, to build a crosswalk up and over?
They did, that is a multi-million-dollar project, so that's not gonna happen. But yeah, they actually did look at that, they did some conceptual engineering for it.
Wow. Anything else?
Midwest Companies down on Briar Hill Road is moving forward, they've got their grading equipment out there, and as soon as the weather's, conducive, they'll start building.
And we're on Briar Hill?
Just north of the tracks,
Okay, so that's going forward, okay?
that's all I can think of now,
And what do they think about the increase in train traffic behind their property?
I have no clue, I haven't talked to them at all about it. It's gonna be an industrial property, so.
That's good. So whatever happened to that property that was gonna be in that general area where they were talking about a vineyard, remember?
It's still
Same
them,
group of people.
it's still them, they're still there,
Okay.
they still have long-term plans for something of that
So
nature.
I would think the train traffic would affect them.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I ran into them at the chamber breakfast. They're really nice people.
Oh, yeah.
Really nice people.
Absolutely.
Of course, I screwed up and when they said they were catering. At first, I didn't put it together. I thought they were a food company. I'm like, oh, so you own a restaurant or whatever? And they looked at me like, no. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're the guys. But really nice people, very sweet. They got a lot of land, so, and they got some big ideas. So we're excited to see what they can.
If they're working on connecting water and sewer to the property now.
When will the houses start going up behind the grade school?
On the grades, over in Oakstead?
Yeah,
That's a variable situation. It just depends on, actually an infrastructure project that we have to figure out who's gonna pay for. And the market for builders to buy their land. So I know they've been talking to builders, they've talked about selling 50 lots, they've talked about selling 250 lots all right there to a builder. So we'll see.
is that all Hampshire property or not? Is it?
And what do they say about, what does Crown say about the demand? How interested are builders? in
They're still selling. I mean, Prairie Ridge, they came in and put in a new final plat for neighborhood M, which is gonna be townhomes.
Yeah.
So that got approved at the last board meeting. That'll move forward. They plan on selling that to, it's public, DR Horton. Might have already sold, I'm not sure. I haven't heard any conversations from the last couple days, but so that's going forward. They plan on coming in to do replatting of another neighborhood, and then they want to do kind of another master replatting, kind of like they did for Oakstead last year for the rest of Prairie Ridge. So the demand is still there. I know that the Tuscany Woods folks were talking to a builder about the second phase of Tuscany Woods. So there's still activity and there's still demand.
What's the estimated population of Hampshire in 10 years?
Well, CMAP put us at 35,000 in 2050.
Wow.
So that's a ways away, and honestly, I think it'll get there before
I
2050, in my
agree,
opinion.
I agree, but this building is gonna be.
Of course, in 2 months, the housing market could crash, and you just never know. So they're selling stuff while they can.
Very good.
Yeah, a lot of activity, a lot of activity. Anybody else have anything else they want to share?
Josh, I'm always so impressed with you.
Well, thank you.
You do a fantastic job, and thanks for all you do.
Appreciate it.
I agree.
Echo bias too. Okay, no one else has anything else to say? I think at this point I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of adjourning meeting of the Business Development Commission, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion passes.